Scientists are coming up with some great ideas to keep us in excitement, to keep us further away from reality. Now they started talking about, besides space-time, space-time is evidently a thing which Einstein did not have to invent, yet he made himself immortal for everybody referring to him and mentioning his name more often in reference to space-time than in reference to any other important thing he has discovered. So in a way he made his name immortal. And now there is another excitement which is called a quantum gravity. Quantum gravity is another ingredient which scientists invented nowadays, and anything you can come up with quantum, you just attach the name quantum and everybody bows down, and all those worshippers of false science, as long as you say quantum, oh, they fall flat on their face and they start worshipping. And space-time is one of it. Space-time, they try to really commit this incredible crime of raping time in order to satisfy their perverse appetite with space-time, trying to make us believe that time is another dimension. So I have to ask you this: if time cannot exist where it's not applicable, and that's a simple fact, where time is not applicable, time does not exist. And if I lower myself into their level and talk about that Big Bang theory, they all agree time did not exist prior to the Big Bang. They all agree on that. And time started existing. This is very interesting because they have the matter even prior to the Big Bang, and the matter went through some drastic changes and became the universe, yet time did not exist prior to the Big Bang, and the explosion of the matter which created the universe. And now here comes even more ridiculous assumptions, more ridiculous fairy tales, by saying there are not just one universe but parallel universes. So actually, according to this theory, Big Bang had to happen over and over several times. Oh, I'm not trying to give you ideas, please. I should stop there because they will jump on that ridiculous way of thinking. But I just want to ridicule you how stupid ideas you come up with. Time did not exist before the Big Bang. Matter did exist. So the universe becomes and time becomes. Okay, so yeah, that would make sense if time was another dimension. But time is not another dimension, and nobody can prove, and nobody will ever be able to prove that time is another dimension, because even scientists openly agree that time did not exist before the Big Bang. Time came into existence. Yet, the only measurable and the only scientific way to talk about time is by the clock. So now there is space-time. Space-time, which they try to say is another dimension, and that's the only way space-time would make sense. But again, going back to the same fact that in eternity, time does not exist. Outside of our solar system, outside of our planet Earth, time does not exist. The way we know time, the way we measure time, and the way we talk about time, outside of these elements, time does not exist. And neither can the span of time be measured in eternity. Nobody cares about that. Nobody boggles the mind with such of stupidity. How many times we spin around, how many times we orbit around the sun. Who cares? When you have tens of millions of years later just talking and thinking about still in the beginning. So anyway, scientists cannot wrap their minds around eternity. Neither can I, I have to admit. But I can accept the fact that eternity does exist, and eternity is reality. And yes, there is no need for the measurement of time in eternity because it would just ridiculously make no sense. Elevation sea level, we are on elevation sea level, talking about gravity, talking about quantum gravity. That's gonna be the next generation of scientists trying to rape gravity, as the scientists are raping time with space-time, trying to prove that time is another dimension. But time cannot be another dimension, people, if it's not universal. If it's not universal, because the three known dimensions we talk about and we can scientifically prove, it's universal. The three known dimensions, the three dimensions we live, we move in, and we call reality. That three dimensions, that's universal. And it can be created any part of the universe. Of course, scientists will have a problem with that statement, but that's all they do. They try to give credit to something by discrediting everything in reality, everything we know in reality, discrediting all that we have experienced, we have measured, we have calculated in order to create confusion. Things we do not know, things we cannot prove. And the only way they try to prove their theories by discrediting reality. That's the only way. That's how far they have gone with their fairy tales. And of course, that's the only way to explain Santa Claus. That's the only way to make us believe in Santa Claus and other stupidities, by discrediting reality. And this is very, very interesting, because the opposite is true for God. To credit God, the creator of nature, the God of nature, is by crediting him with all his creation. So that's a big, huge difference between theoretical scientists, and I have to emphasize that not all scientists are jumping on the bandwagon, but the theoretical scientists, by the way, they are the ones making the most money. It's so ridiculous. They are the real enemies of the existence of God. And the only way they can, or they are trying to prove their imaginations by discrediting reality. So they would definitely find faults with statements, even statements I say. You cannot measure weight in weightlessness. You cannot measure it. Even if you put a human body in weightlessness in space, you have no idea how heavy that human being is. You cannot measure the weight of the human being in space, where there is very little effect of gravity. And of course, you can come up with some stupidity, you can come up with some ideas which will be far from the real measurements. And I'm talking about even if it is 1 kilo away. The way we have our instruments today, 1 kilo difference is very far away because of the accuracy of the instruments we have developed by science, by realistic science. 1 kilo difference is a big, huge difference in the science of matter. So you cannot measure, you can guess, but you cannot scientifically measure the weight of a body in weightlessness. The same way, you cannot measure time outside of our relation, planet Earth I'm talking about, to the sun, where we have developed the concept of time. Time is measurable because there is a scientific way to measure it, a scientific development of the concept of time for the human race here on planet Earth. Would you take that human race to Pluto or Saturn? You could always relate to the scientifically developed original time on planet Earth by comparing movements of Saturn around the sun, around its orbit. We don't even know all the exact measurements of that, as much as we know it here on planet Earth. And we cannot prove it as much as we can prove it here on planet Earth. We can just guess, like we would be able to guess an astronaut in space who is in weightlessness and come up with some educated guess how much his weight could be on planet Earth, which again, it would not be an exact measurement, because even on the face of the Earth could change depending on if he's on sea level or he's up on the mountains. So anyway, when we talk about time, we have to stick with reality, the way we know time, and that is by the clock. And now, if we talk about eternity, with all sincerity, I would think we can forget about time. Can we not? Just remember, even that billions of years, what scientists throw out there for the dinosaurs and when human life began or appeared, whatever, the billions of years, they are very, very generous and very, very flexible with those billions of years of time, because they have billions to give or take. They have plenty. But in eternity, that's still nothing. those billions and billions of years, the scientists are so forgiving and so lenient with, it is nothing comparing to eternity. So what need is there to measure time throughout eternity? The reality is that there is no need for it. Neither was there anything measurable before the sun and the earth was created. Regardless what you believe in the Big Bang or intelligent design, doesn't matter. You could not, nobody can relate to time when time did not exist. And time, the way we know it, the way we measure it, did not exist prior to the formation of the sun, prior to the formation of planet Earth. When we try to measure that period of existence, even if it was without us, I'm not talking about human existence. If we try to measure period of existence prior to the existence of time, prior to the existence of planet Earth and the sun, our sun, you cannot call it time. It is simple as that. Wrap your mind around it. You can call it by many other names, but you cannot call it by time. And neither can you say space-time, because space-time does not exist. Because time is not the fourth dimension. You cannot call time the fourth dimension when it's not universal. The fourth dimension has to be universal. Yet we go out of our solar system, time ceases to exist. And it's not universal. It cannot be universal. It cannot be the fourth dimension. And that is so simple. Even an 8 years old would understand. An 8 years old child would understand. Yes, we have 3 dimensions, and that's all universal. And so has to be the fourth, which cannot be time. It is simple as that. So I think that should put all these high-paid scientists to the rest. That should really, really settle this issue forever, forever, even in eternity. It should settle it. And this is reality. I think we should deal with it the way it is, not by our imaginations, which cannot be proved, cannot be measured, and cannot be taken in as a fact. That's basically my main topic now as we go up the mountains and make my way into San Diego at the other side. Time-wise, about another 2 hours, because some of the uphill going will be really slow. Here we go. Look at this. Construction people. That's all I have to say about time, at least for now.